Because I go first.
Yeah, because your slides first. Do you want me to go first?
No, it's okay.
I'm screen sharing. Oh, there you go.
All right. So today we're going to talk about fish skin grafts and how they are used in the medical field. Maybe.
It worked a second.
All right. So this is a little rough draft for you, but today we're going to talk about skin. So what is skin? It is actually the body's largest organ. It is a protection layer which protects against like outside bacteria and other harmful agents such as like chemicals and heat. And it also regulates your body in thermoregulation. And so the skin possesses three main layers. Those layers are the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis, which is also called the subcutaneous tissue layer. All right, to go a little bit more into the layers of the skin, you have the epidermis, which is the top layer of the skin. It is your body's first protection layer against the outside environment. So this also provides the skin with its coloration and pigment, and it also is the first process in making new cells. Then you have the second layer of the skin, which is the dermis. This is the middle layer of the skin, and it makes up around 90% of your skin's total thickness, as you can see in the diagram to your right. And so this layer mostly possesses like the connective tissues and everything within that, and that helps you regulate your sensation. And then last but not least, you have the hypodermis, and this is the bottom layer of the skin. It connects the skin muscle to the harder bone structures, as we can see in the diagram. It aids in the thermoregulation process, and it also allows for us to feel the different sensations as well as found in the dermis, such as like if you burn yourself, you can feel the pain and you react to that said burn. All right, so a little bit more about like skin. We're going to look at the differences between adult skin and pediatric skin, which is like children's skin. So as we can see from the diagram, adult skin tends to be thicker and have a thicker epidermis as well as a thicker stratum corneum. It also has slower rate of water loss and then more like pigments and stuff like that. And this makes it rougher and harder to penetrate through. And then when you look at a baby skin, we can see that it has a thinner epidermis and then a thinner stratum corneum. And so this makes the skin of a baby more smooth, easier to penetrate, and easier for like bacteria or other harmful agents to get through. All right, so the process of skin cell regeneration. It begins with multiple steps, and these steps include bleeding, inflammation, proliferation, and then maturation. And then the first one is bleeding, which we'll go into further. And then you have inflammation, which is like chemicals are released within the body, and this causes like redness within the skin. And these causes range from bacteria, trauma, toxins, and heat. So as you can see in the very first diagram, the red indicates an open wound, whereas the red bottom line is a blood vessel. So the open wound is like the bleeding, the example of the bleeding, and this is hematosis. So this is like the clotting of the blood. And then, as you can see from the diagram before, it's inflamed compared to the picture shown in proliferation. So the inflammation causes like swelling and the redness, but it's a healthy process within skin healing. Then you have proliferation, and this is when the new cells are being created. So this aids in the rebuilding of the granulation tissue, the excellular matrix, and different blood vessels found within the skin. Then lastly, but not least, we have maturation, which is like the complete healing process of the skin. So as we can see in the diagram, you have the healing between the wound and the rest of the layers. And then we have the stages of burns. So as you can see in the diagram, we have first degree, second degree, superficial, second degree deep, and then third degree burns. So the very first degree is only like the top layer of the epidermis is affected. The second degree burn is like the top layer, and then the very top layer of the dermis, which is affected. The third layer is affected with the epidermis, the dermis, and like the very low part of the dermis. And then for the third degree burns, the entire layers of the skin are affected when it comes to burn victims. And then to go more into the history of burns, burn history and treatment for burns has been studied for a long time. It was first seen in Egyptians, and they used medicines from plants, animal products, and other minerals. And within this, they mixed it with like magical and religious practices in order to heal their patients. And so from there, we can see burn like history through like the Greek and the Roman doctors, and they were recorded in using like rendered pig fat, resin, and bitumen to treat their burn victims. As we move farther into our history, we can see the Chinese use a more traditional approach, and they focused on philosophy, knowledge, and herbal medicine when looking at their burn victims. And as we move into modern medicine, we can see like first successful skin grafts being performed in like 1972. And this is where modern medicine really changed for the better. All right, so there are different types of skin grafts. You have temporary skin grafts, and then you also have permanent skin grafts. We're going to go into the temporary skin grafts first of all, and these are allografts. So this is when like human cadaver skin is used to temporarily cover an excised wound. And so the skin is placed over the wound, and it is only placed there for a short amount of time. And then the last one is the xenograft, and this is when you take skin from a variety of animals, and it is temporarily covering the wound, which can be seen in our study, which is an example of like fish. All right, and then the last one, we have 3 types of skin grafts that are permanent. These are autografts, sheet grafts, and the other one, which is not on there. So autografts is skin grafts, and these are taken from burn victims. It's the top layer of the skin, which is used from the donor skin, and this is skin that's not of their own. Then you have sheet grafts. This is a piece of donor skin that is harvested from an unburned area of that burn victim's body. This is usually a large surface area, so like a thigh or like a back. And then there was another one, but we'll go into that one later. All right, and then why is this important? So aquaculture and human health is very important. It's been studied for the past decade, and it keeps growing in the scientific field. And so aquaculture basically is the breeding and raising of caring for aquatic animals in controlled environments for economic gain. And so this usually occurs in tanks, ponds, offshore cages, etc., and it can occur in both freshwater and saltwater environments. And so what is aquaculture used for? It is mostly used for food production, as we can see in like the United States, but it can also be used in modern medicine, as we can see globally, and how it is expanding within the use of fish skin grafts. All right, and I'm going to move it to Charis.
Thank you, Bailey. So going off what Bailey just presented, our research was really into whether there were alternatives to skin grafts. So first of all, just to build off what Bailey said, a skin graft is a compatible skin sample that is used to conceal burns, scarring, or other forms of skin trauma. It was first introduced for medical purposes in 1869, and then the research really took off in the 70s, like Bailey mentioned, and their success rate typically falls between 85 to 90%, and their recovery takes around 2 to 3 weeks. Sadly, their skin grafts can be rejected, and this interferes with this leads to further bleeding and infections. And unfortunately, skin grafts are incredibly expensive, and even a moderate burn can cost upwards of $200,000, but this is before insurance. And then poor color matching often occurs in approximately every 50 cases. And this also has unfortunately led to a lot of racism within the medical field. So what is a possible alternative to a skin graft? Currently, there are 50 million tons of fish being wasted annually. This equates to around 27% of all captured fish. And then just like leading up to fish skin grafts, fish have been used for medical purposes since nearly 2000 BCE. So there are alternative uses for the fish. We don't need to necessarily be wasting them. So why would the fish skin be successful as a skin graft? Well, collagen is the main ingredient within fish skin, and collagen leads to skin regeneration. It plays an important role in that it attracts cells such as fibroblasts and keratinocytes. I'll be able to say that one day, but these encourage debridement and angiogenesis and fertilization. Excuse me, I practice that. These contain the same amount of collagen per square inch when compared to human skin grafts. Nile tilapia actually contain the most amount of collagen, which is why they were utilized in most of the studies that we observed. So how are skin grafts applied? Human skin grafts are applied by anesthetizing the patient and then placing the skin graft over the burn area and adhering it typically with staples. This is a very painful process, and even my great-grandmother, she actually went through this. She had a burn on her leg and they had to graft a piece of skin on, and she would beg daily not to have to do her walks or to hydrate it because it was so painful. So fish skin, as an alternative, it does require a preceding step, which is to soak it in saline, but it is then held in place and simply wrapped around with gauze, and it does not require staples or anesthetics. So why the fish skin graft? Let me move this camera. So why the fish skin graft is so successful in part, aside from collagen or containing collagen, it is not nearly as porous as other skin grafts. As you can see, the ProHeal skin graft, which is below the Keratsis graft, but the fish skin graft is at the top and is not nearly as porous and very identical to human skin, whereas the ProHeal, which is a bovine skin graft, is incredibly porous. So fish skin grafts actually outcompeted each type of skin graft that we looked at, which was human and bovine grafts. In each of the given categories, we considered economics, the amount of time that it took for the patient to heal, and the overall recovery process. So in general, a patient's underlying medical condition can make a difference in the patient's wound healing rate. This means that if the patient was sick or was injured before the skin graft was applied or after, can really throw a wrench in the healing process. Diseases can worsen recovery process, but may occur due to the graft itself. And possible negative effects to the use of skin grafts include that some people are allergic to fish, and many do not consider the fish skin graft to be aesthetically pleasing. But the positive factors outweigh the negative in that they are much cheaper than the human skin grafts. And the recovery process is much quicker, and they do not require staples or anesthetics. So in conclusion, fish skin grafts are a beneficial replacement to the traditional skin graft. More research is needed into the topic, and in its introduction could change the medical and subsequently the medical field and subsequently the American economy, in that the fish skin grafts are essentially free. Thank you. That's the end of our presentation. Trying to not pause, Cheryl. You see?